Welcome to Lazer Radio. I'm Brad Sohner. This episode is brought to you by the new Lazer Bullet helmet. The perfect combination of aerodynamics and ventilation, the Bullet is designed with a narrow front profile and smooth top section with minimal venting for maximum aerodynamic benefit. The air slide system allows for ventilation on demand with quick and easy adjustment of the front vent cap. Compatible with both the Lazer LifeBeam integrated heart rate monitor system and the Lazer inclination sensor position monitor, the Bullet is available in both standard and MIPS versions. In stock and available now, visit your local Lazer dealer for more information on the Lazer Bullet. On today's episode of Lazer Radio, we are joined by some heavy-hitting World Tour talent. We've got Alexey Vermeulen from the LottoNL Jumbo team, fresh off the plane back to Europe after spending some time back home in Michigan. Alexey, I hope you're not too jet-lagged.
No, I haven't been too bad. I managed to snag a really nice seat on the plane over, so I got some Z's.
Did you get the coveted full row, or was it just an exit row seat?
Actually, Austrian Airlines has an auction upgrade program for seats that aren't sold, so I actually got moved to business.
Wow!
On the way over.
So there's nothing better than the unexpected business class upgrade.
Not at all.
But you were home for a while. You a month? I think I saw you were back home early November.
Yeah, for a month. It ended up working out pretty well. I went home to do a mountain bike race up north in Michigan that I do every year, Iceman. And
the legendary Iceman cometh.
The legendary Iceman. Oh, it's a blast every year. This year I actually got close to being up there with those boys, but I stayed around through a little bit after Thanksgiving, so it was a good trip.
Well, you were, top 20 in Iceman?
Top 10.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So I missed it. I was leaving Tour of Hainan. I've done Iceman every year, I think, for the last, 6 or 7 years. Flight delayed out of Hainan and missed Iceman this year for the first time in forever. I was bummed.
Now you got to do it another 20 years to make up for it.
I know. But one of my favorite races in the country, without question. The race,
it's a blast.
Party,
everyone's having a party the whole time, right?
Yeah. If you've never been to Traverse City, Iceman, even if you don't race, even if you just go up to watch the people come in and party with us at Timber Ridge campgrounds, it's a blast. All right. Anyway, Alexey, I want to talk first about sort of your career, because you had a really fairy tale junior career, starting from when you were a really young rider. Your talent was ID'd pretty early, and I think there's a lot of kids out there, junior racers, who are exactly where you were, and they have world tour ambitions, or they want to be professional bike racers. And they're wondering what the next sort of 5 years of their lives are going to look like if they pursue, this dream of being a professional cyclist. And I think you're a really good example of how that gets done. And we were talking a little bit earlier about the process that you went through to try to make it to the World Tour. But let's start early on, before even you had pro ambitions. When did you start racing your bike?
I started because of my grandfather. He was born in Holland, and he kind of came over a couple times. I was doing triathlons at the time, just with my mom playing hockey. And there was a local crit in my local town, and I jumped in there with a 24-inch wheeled Trek and spun my legs out and had a blast. And I've kind of been hooked from there. But one thing my parents always did well is, I always like to say, they kind of made cycling kind of played hard to get with me, and I did every other sport. And I would have to take this time away when I saw the kids in Colorado or in California training, and I was, hey, go do something else, go running, go play hockey, go do something else. I always loved it, but it was kind of like, I've never ever gotten burned out in the sport, because I think I've always done so much, and that's been really helpful. But yeah, I started, and then I think my first season that I got really interested in at Nationals happened to be within driving distance in Seven Springs.
Yep.
In 2007. So that was my first year kind of racing. And I went up there and just got my doors blown off. I actually went first turn the TT, I went the wrong way.
No way.
Came back, bawling my eyes out, right? Because I have all these ambitions to do well at Nationals, because I've been doing well at Michigan. And finally the official's like, fine, you can go again as the last person. So I don't think that has ever happened at Nationals, but I guess 13, 14, they can allow it.
Bless that official that gave Alexey Vermeulen his second chance.
So I went again and I got 40th or something, and from there I was hooked. I mean, we went to a lot of nationals together, and also I liked the family bond of it and the traveling. Doing road trips around the U.S. and
It takes a special set of parents to raise a junior bike racer, doesn't it?
that also.
Much like any sport, I get hockey parents or gymnastics parents, cheerleading, whatever. They travel, I guess, equally as much, but then you get into the international aspect of it, and it gets even crazier. So when was your first sort of USA Cycling interaction? Because you got into that USA Cycling pipeline program pretty quickly. In fact, you talked about following the steps on the website. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I had it on my wall. It was this little pipeline. I don't even know if they have it up there anymore, because it used to say like Lazer's races. That there was that Lance Armstrong series.
Yeah.
And no, so I started at the bottom. It started like with local results, and I started kind of moving up the categories. And my dad had this rule that I couldn't move up a category unless I had every step of the podium in a race.
Cool.
And so it was actually good, because, of course, I could have just run through the categories, but in Michigan, moving up through those categories wasn't the same as moving up in Colorado.
Right.
If that makes sense.
I was going to ask about, you talked about, growing up and training in Michigan and like having to go skate or run instead while the kids in California are riding. It makes it that much tougher trying to break through when you've got kids that have mountains in their backyard. And you were in southern Michigan, right?
Yeah, southern Michigan, kind of, I would say, just like east of Detroit, pretty much.
Yeah, okay.
So,
all right. I mean, there's some riding, but maybe a few months out of the year, you're stuck inside.
Yeah, or mountain biking, which I'll get into that. So, anyway, but I went through this pipeline. I mean, I kept ticking the boxes off, and luckily I got chosen to go to that Talent ID camp. Pretty young, actually. It was in Colorado at that point for us in the Springs, the Olympic Training Center, and I got to go there, and it was a blast. I was angry actually because I had to have a flight attendant sign me off. Like, I couldn't fly alone yet. So like John Heidemann, I don't know if you know who he is, had to pick me up and sign me off. And I was like, this is bull crap.
How old are you at this point?
I was racing age 15, right. But I was 14 still.
So you're 14.
My birthday's in December.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of where it started, and I think I did well, but I was obviously at that age, they're just kind of IDing talent. I mean, I was super young. It was more learning about pace lines and nutrition, and I think that only, like, having that 1 week of really serious, I guess, talks, showing, hey, this is the nutrition that pro athletes use, and this is what doping is like, and I don't know, I fell more interested into the sport.
Yeah, that was a turning point.
Yeah, and so I think then I left, and I was even more focused, and I got invited back the next year actually to another ID camp, but it was completely snowed out. I don't think we rode. We rode one day, I think. But it was still a blast, and I think from there, then I think you can go through. I had a couple of years where I was just doing what every junior does, trains, and trying to figure out what racing was all about, and then in 2011, I went to nationals as a first-year junior, and now would I say my breakout moment was there. I won the road race in breakaway of 2 in the last 10 kilometers, and I think I'd been getting good results, but that was what broke it through, and I got invited to Europe after that, and that was like the breaking point in my career, I think.
2011 was also, you had a good tour of Abitibi, or Abitibi, depending on who you ask.
Yeah, no, and I think that that solidified the result. I mean, nationals can be a race where it can be negative. It can be, hey, he just got lucky. Hey, something happened. A crash happened here. Something happened there. But
right.
Getting top 5 in Abitibi as a first year junior also solidified that. Hey, he's here to race, and I wasn't on the dominant national team at that point. I was racing for Turner Pro Chain.
Right.
And I was happy to do that. I kind of enjoyed going against, and so I raced aggressively and had a blast doing it, and I realized, I mean, it's all these points you fall in love with the sport, and there I fell more kind of finding my way, and I realized this could be a really, really cool job if I could do it, but I kept trying to keep myself, I realized also how hard it was to make it professional. And so that year after Abitibi, I got to go to Europe for a month and a half, I think a little Kermesse trip.
Yeah.
And that aggressive racing style that I have. I'm not sure if that comes from Michigan, having to kind of make my own racing sometimes, or just how I am. But it led me to do very well in kermesses. I think the first one I got my doors blown off, and then after that, it was second, third, fifth, and so I got invited to World Championships actually that year. So I ended up staying for almost 2.5 months in Europe, my first trip.
Wow!
But the whole time was just a whirlwind, and I was learning. It was such an experience. I took so many pictures, and Billy Ennis was there. It was one of my first. He was right when Billy Ennis and Ben Sharp were kind of trading jobs.
Sure.
And learned a lot from him, and just loved the racing over there, and loved Europe as a whole. And I thought it was such a cool experience. My friends were back in school, and I would come back and make fun of them. It was
What did your Michigan friends think of you being a pro cyclist? I can't imagine. I mean, there's not a ton of contemporary Michigan guys besides Larry and Frankie Andreu. Bike racing is not a big thing in Michigan. What are your friends back home when you really made a go at this thing? What did they say?
Yeah, no. So when I was younger, it used to be really weird, but I was quite a good runner also. So that kind of played off for me. I was almost winning everything in middle school. And so when juniors was going on, it was all good. And then kind of when I moved into high school, I was still trying to figure out what I was going to do. That's also where guys figure out under 23 teams and are they going to make the next step. And so there, when my friends kind of figured out that, this kid's kind of, he's in Europe for 2 months. Where has this kid been? My good friends knew, and like they were enjoyed. They were always interested in it. There's so much. It's very hard to explain a bike race, as I'm sure you know.
Sure.
So explaining
story
that,
of my life.
Yeah, explaining that many times over was difficult, and then all of a sudden the whole Lance Armstrong thing started happening, and then became even more interesting conversation.
Man.
But
yeah. Talk about tough timing.
Yeah, but it was funny because so my good friends knew, and they were motivated, and they supported me a lot. But the people who didn't know me, I would come back to school and I would have the most random gossip had gone around. Man, didn't you just win the Olympics?
Yeah, where you were.
But curling, random sports. And it was like the weirdest conversation. Like I came back to prom and I had one kid ask me, I figured it was about, I was like, was I on the bowling team, national bowling team or something? And I was like, what? Like, no. And he was like, okay. And he just walked. Like, there was so much going around the school for people who didn't know me. It was just like I was absent. I wasn't there. So it was the mysterious.
Legend. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't even go that far because no one knew what I was doing. But so that's people who didn't know me knew that. But then I kind of ended up going to online school after my sophomore year, just because it wasn't working out. With a couple teachers traveling that much.
Yep. Travel is so tough with school. I went through the same thing. I started traveling early for announcing even in high school, and some teachers get it and some teachers don't.
No, exactly. And that was my issue. I had 90% of my teachers got it, and I had one math teacher. I would come back and he would give me 5 tests that day, and it's like, okay, man, I understand, but this is bigger than the ACT, like. And so, luckily, I had a really, really nice principal. I wanted to keep running. I wanted to keep up with what my parents had instilled in me, that cycling isn't everything in the world. Sure. Kind of outlook. And so he allowed me to find this program. What's called? I can't think of it, but it was a school program effectively through my high school. So I had a seat in every class I was taking. Mm-hmm. So I could graduate with my class. I could run cross country with my class. So I was still a high school student there. So that was pretty cool. And so for the first year, whenever I was there, I would still go into orchestra, and I would still kind of have that high school environment. 'Cause I'm a very social kid, and cycling, as I'm also sure you can know, can be a very individual sport, even though it's with a team. And so I was happy to have that because I really didn't want to leave school. It just wasn't working out how I planned. But yeah, so my principal allowed me to do that online, and then I think everyone started knowing what I was doing because it was announced at school, and it was this, it was that. And yeah, and at that point, I had just kind of glazed over this, but I had just signed for BMC development team, which was a major step for me.
Yeah, I was going to ask where that was in that progression. I mean, did you know you were with BMC when you made the decision to go to school online? Was that deal done?
Yeah, so I was already almost a year. I was kind of like halfway through sophomore year.
Okay.
I just stepped back a little bit.
You signed the BMC deal when you were a freshman in high school?
Yes.
The end of your freshman year?
End of my freshman year.
And this is
freshman year because
for people at home, this is the BMC development team, which is, I guess, now defunct, right?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, which was an arm of the BMC Pro team aimed at developing young talent like Alexey. So, wow. So you had a deal freshman year of high school. And was it a 2-year deal from the start, or did you re-up after your first year?
Yes, it was a 2-year deal, which was awesome. They viewed it as it was a very, very professional development team. And I had a hard decision between Axel's program, Action, which was Livestrong, and between BMC. But I was excited about the new unit. And as I said, I'd kind of fallen in love with Europe as well as cycling. So BMC being more based out of Europe really seemed like the fit that I wanted.
Yeah.
But yeah, I signed, I think, or I had the contract option at Worlds in Valkenburg that year, my last year as a junior. And then it was kind of decision time, and I would say it's one of the first big decisions I've made in my life. You know, you kind of have those decisions that change your life, and I think that was one of the first big ones, and it was definitely the right one. That team was still one of the most fun I've ever had on a bike. Just everything about it, the guys, the team was so professional but also relaxed. We had a great director, and also being a new team, you know, they're still working out the kinks, and it was fun. It was, and you also got to race all the cool big races. The name kind of got you in, even though we were only under 23 team.
Yeah, but everyone knows BMC, and the kits were remarkably similar too. In fact, they might have been the exact same.
Everything was 1 year previously used, so it was kind of a recycling program for the pro team.
Interesting, smart, smart planning by the
not used kits, but new kits from the year before.
Right. Good, all right.
Just to clarify that.
Good to clean that up. We'll talk more about what it's like racing with BMC, but I want to go back to that decision, like you talked about. You know, signing with BMC was really that another one of those big turning points. It's always tough to look back and say what if, but what was your plan how far were you willing to go before you got a contract like that, before you got a pro contract? Because I think there's a lot of kids that are going to be, you know, a freshman in high school right now, and that deal maybe won't come until the end of high school or a couple years after high school. What was your plan? I mean, you seem like a kid who has a good head on his shoulders. What was your, I'm sure you talked about this with your parents. What was your, sort of break-even point, if you will?
Yeah, no, if I didn't sign for a team that was a visible pathway, we were working on this pathway from USA Cycling, so we kind of saw that through also to under 23s. It continued on the USA Cycling, if you're not going to make the national team as under 23, okay, that's one step, but so they viewed it as, okay, these are the couple teams that you could go to and still have a visible road to the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
And that at that point I think was like Hincapie at that point was still it was still Continental, so it was a possible for an under 23 rider, and BMC and Action. And so if it wasn't one of those teams, I had a couple other offers. I thought about racing for Bissell at that time. It was from Michigan, from Grand Rapids. But it wasn't going to be for one of those teams where there was a pathway to that next step. Then I was going to go to school. I was up until I almost didn't go out on New Year's Eve that year because I was finishing my final college applications. I think I applied to a good number of schools, and that was my backup plan. It wasn't backup plan at all for my mom, but it was, I took the ACTs, took my SATs. I knew what I wanted to do in school. And if I couldn't get on one of those teams, I was going to pick a school where I could go to school and still race for a little bit lower level. But in the end, when BMC came, I still had my school. I deferred. I was going to go to school at Simon Fraser in British Columbia.
Yep.
And I deferred for 2 years, even though I was racing on BMC, because I still wanted to see, hey, can I do this? Can I hack it? where is this step taking me?
Sure.
Because we all know how cycling is. I mean, crap, I could have signed that contract and then crashed the first race. Cycling's a very fickle sport. And so, yeah, I was still playing it out, and I was still seeing if I had the guts, had the legs to do this and hack it. And luckily I did. And so I didn't defer for a third year. I don't even know if it was impossible. And I decided I wanted to go all in for this. And even if I guess I was all in already, but mentally also. And I guess that was the end of the decision. And I would say I'd still going to go back to school if I end up not getting a contract. But from then on, I looked at it like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to focus. Can I make it to the World Tour from here? And then it was, another one of those big decisions where it's like, okay, you're all in for this. You're not going to go to school with your friends when they're going to school. There's also a thing that you start thinking about, right? Your friends are texting you, hey, freshman year's so cool. This is a blast. This is so much better than high school. And you realize that if you are going to go back to school, you're going to be that weird kid.
And you're like, it's 4 a.m. where I am. Stop texting me. I haven't been out in weeks because I'm training. Exactly
that. And like, I would get so many alcohol or intoxicated voicemails.
Yeah, sure.
Shit, did I make the right decision? Am I missing out on fun? Am I having
I assume this was pre-Snapchat. I think you're lucky that your friends couldn't bombard you with party snaps.
Yeah, no, I would get voicemails, but no, it was a blast. But then you have these moments, like kermesses or other European experiences where you're like, oh yeah, I'm also having fun. They're not doing this.
Yeah, there's not a ton of early 20-something kids that can say, they've toured the world or
all over Western Europe.
Yeah, spent a few months in Europe, spent a few months here, spent a few months there. Where is your European base when you go back to Europe? Where's home for you there?
Good question. Normally, if I had a contract, it was originally Girona.
You were in Girona, okay.
Yeah. Right now, I'm living in Austria with my girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is just to have a base in Europe, whether it's in Spain or in Austria. As an American, you can move around a little bit, so it's more just having an apartment somewhere that I can have stuff. And moving around, I love Girona, and I've only been in Austria for a couple months, but I also like Austria. So Austria has been nice because it's a little bit more real life, if that makes sense. I can go watch hockey games. I can go skiing. I can go do other things.
Feels a little more like home. Certainly more like Michigan than Girona, that's for sure.
Yes. And Girona is awesome. I wouldn't have gone anywhere else for my Neo-Pro years for sure. But it's all cycling. Everything about it is cycling. And sometimes I'm that person who wants to get away, who wants to go do other things.
Yep.
And it's quite difficult. It's not to say, it's the best place for a cyclist right now, for sure. You can ride with anybody, any day, any time. But there's not much more. It's the little town of Girona. It's Spain. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. But you're either going to walk around, you're going to get coffees, or you're going to ride a bike.
I think that's important for a lot of bike racers to realize.
That is also true. But
but there's more. There's more to life than just being a pro cyclist, and it's easy to get enveloped in that, especially in your first couple years as a pro. Which the jump to World Tour. When you first signed with Lotto Jumbo, what was the biggest change for you going to the World Tour level from the BMC development team?
Yeah, and definitely moving. And I'll say that quick by stepping back and saying that if any junior or under 23 were to ask me where should I move to Europe, I would without a doubt say Girona for your first couple of years, because it's an easy place. There's friends around of all countries. Americans also, you can feel at home with that. You can get used to living alone in Europe and what it's like. And also just setting up that base of, phone service or, dealing with people that aren't from your country.
Yeah.
In that regard, I think Girona is one of the easiest places just because everyone has done it before you. Getting UCI blood tests. There's little things you have to think about. And so
that life in Europe can be one of the hardest transitions for people. I talk about this all the time, and some riders are like, I don't know what you're talking about. It was fine. Like, it was easy. And some riders have that experience of like, the first time you go over there and just everything is hard. Everything is harder, nothing makes sense, and you're trying to hack it on your own. And you've never lived alone, and then they just, you ship over there.
Yeah, no, and I actually just recently wrote an interview for someone else about it, because I think that's one of the reasons you don't see as many Americans as their talent would suggest.
Would you
Because there's
would
that.
you recommend kids be in a hurry to get over there? Does it help you to get over there sooner rather than later?
No, once again, I would say spend minimum 2 years in the under 23 at least, and I think 3 was still cutting it close for me. I just think under 23 allows you to still. So with BMC, I was able to go for more time than I was with the national team, but also still come home, still get that feeling, still learn what it's like to be in Europe. But going back to the question you asked, I think the hardest thing was moving, and it's that step, it's stepping away from having parents. So with the national team, we had Andrew Hawks.
Mm-hmm.
Every time, he takes care of you. They get you food. They pick you up at the airport.
Mm-hmm.
They make sure they have room for your bike. They have a room for you. There's Wi-Fi. There's heating. Everything you can imagine is done. And so I always was like, oh, I'm going to Europe. I'm doing it by myself, blah, 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 blah. But I just took a big taxi.
Right.
As a plane.
Exactly.
And the ticket was booked for me. Everything was booked for me. And so the first time I went to Spain, 2015, 16, it was like I was arriving. I went and met my manager for the first time of Lotto Jumbo in Amsterdam airport, a long layover. And then I flew into Barcelona, and luckily I was living with Pete Stetna that year, and he gave me some tips. And this is another reason why I say Girona. I mean, you can always find someone to live with, someone to give you tips.
Right.
And so he's like, hey, here's the number for the taxi guy. You should book it. It's the easiest way to do it this time. And now, looking back, this train is super easy. But as the first time flying in with all my stuff,
Yeah.
it was not an option.
Now that you
So
know
anyway-
how to take the train, it's super easy. But
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, I arrived in Girona. It was pitch black, and it was nighttime. I had no idea where I was. Could barely find my apartment. I literally had the taxi driving beside me on the road, and I would go try my key in a couple hours because Pete wasn't there. And I got inside, and I realized, oh my gosh, this is the year Pete broke his leg the year before. So he hadn't been there in 8 months.
yeah.
And so I was like, oh my God, there's nothing to eat here. I literally, that night, ate dinner. It was the first time I think I've ever been hungry in my life.
Starving in Girona.
And so I ate like smushed banana muffins that my mom had sent me for the trip over for dinner that night. And then I was like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to figure out where the grocery stores are. Not going to do this ever again.
Yeah, I got this.
So it's just all of those little things, that you have to figure out how to settle in. And I think it's hard for everybody. I'm not going to say it was easy for me, but I think that side of cycling, that mental side, that living side that is not just cycling, I can do really well.
Yeah.
And so I think,
lesson.
yeah, no, but I think that's something that I think is one of the, it's harder than just training. Anybody can go train in a beautiful place. It's about figuring out everything else around it. And that I think was the hardest thing for me to figure out. And once you get it, it's easy. That part kind of falls away and you have your base, and then you can really focus on training in your job. But I think the first couple months you have to kind of figure yourself out, settle in, and make it home.
The other most important lesson there, always take your mom's muffins.
Yes, always.
You
I
never
can
know.
send you some. I'll
You
tell my
never-
mom to make some. I'll send them around.
All right, that sounds good. Next time I'm in Michigan. I don't know.
Perfect.
Well, maybe now that they have that
Iceman next year.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe now that they have that velodrome up there, we'll have some more races up there. They
Yeah,
just
I was
finished
bummed I
that.
couldn't get out to it before I left.
Yeah. Before we go, I want to talk about one other thing, because I saw you were really stoked on this one of the last races you did with LottoNL Jumbo, racing over in Japan, which I think is like one of the coolest, most unique pro cycling experiences out there right now. Racing in anywhere in Asia, I think right now is really cool. But just talk a little bit about your Japan experience. It seemed like a blast.
Yeah, it was. Just to start, it was a life experience, cycling experience, something I'll never, ever forget, ever. To open it up a little bit wider, I finished my last race with Lotto Jumbo on September 18th or something in Belgium.
Yeah.
Raced well, felt fit, and it was kind of, that's the end. It's been fun. For those people who don't know, I did not re-sign with the team, so it was kind of like a little bit sad, a little bit ongoing. But I was motivated, I was fit, and I think, again, that mentality came in for me that I can really focus on what I want to do. And So then I started focusing on, hey, how can I extend my season? Because I want to show teams that I can do this. I deserve to be up here. And so then Jim Miller was picking the world's team. And so I knew I was going to be close. There's a lot of strong guys this year, and it was going to be a hard course. And so I kept training on, and I kept focused, even though I didn't have any more racing. And the team was picked, and then I was a little bit discouraged, but I was still like, okay, anything can happen. And I kept training. And Brent crashed. Felt horrible for him. Loved the guy, also from Michigan, but he crashed and had a concussion. And I immediately sent Jim a text like that night, and I was like, Jim, if Brent isn't racing, I want that spot. I'm ready. I'm trained. This is mine. And I got it. It came through. I don't know who was looking out for me, and that was really awesome. And so I had this awesome opportunity to also keep going and help me mentally too, because then you're not focusing that you don't have a team the whole time. You have something to do. You're doing your normal job. You're going to train. You're going to get ready for this race. And I was going through life as I normally did, which was awesome and great for me at that moment. And so I did. I got to race Worlds, and then as Worlds ended, it was once again really fun for me. I got to race in the breakaway. Had a lot of fun there with a great team. And then I was going home again. And then I came to Austria, my girlfriend, and I again didn't really know what I was doing. And I told the team like many times, I was like, hey, I'm going to be fit. I'm going to train on. You guys let me know if there's any chance I can do Japan.
Yeah, put me in, coach.
At first I sat there. There was a team picked. There was already 3 reserves picked. That's all how it goes. We all get the letter. This is who's going. And so then I ended up, I kept training. I just kept pushing it. And then like every couple days, I would send my director. That's how it works on Lotto. We each have our personal director who kind of goes up the hierarchy, up the ladder.
Okay.
And so I kept texting. I was like, hey man, I'm doing this. I just did this. I'm training with Marco Haller here from Katusha. I'm doing this. I'm ready. And I was training. I didn't even have a bike here. I was training on my girlfriend's dad's bike, but just balls out every day. And having a blast with it too.
In Austria.
I had no power meter. I was just again that whole thing of falling in love with the sport again.
Yeah.
And it also kept me mentally focused on better things than I would have been thinking about. And so finally,
you're envisioning Japan this whole time. I mean, that's what you're training for, pretty much, on that slight 1% chance that the spot opens up and they call you.
Yeah, they got someone has to either not go, or they got to pull that person and then skip all the alternates.
Right.
It's a very small chance, but it was something that I was really hopeful for. Because once again, it goes back that I wanted to prove that I deserved to be here, and I wanted to race. I guess that's the ultimate thing. Is I want to race. That's the big thing. Otherwise, I'd be at school right now.
Yeah.
And so I trained, and I finally got that call. I think like within a week before Japan, I got that call. But it was super exciting. And of course, I only trained harder. I was only more excited. The last week was more specific training. But then set it all up, flew to Paris to meet the guys, and then we flew from Paris to Tokyo. And at first we got in a bus, and we all drove with all the stuff straight to Itasamiya, which is where the race is.
Yeah.
And it was nighttime. It was a great, really cool team. A lot of guys that I like, and also a general manager, not a director, so that's always fun. A little bit more interesting. We get there, and the hotel's cool, but at first, like, you're not really sure. There's so many people around, and I have a picture. I mean, like, we walked in, like, not really wearing that much Lotto stuff, if any. Maybe we have black jackets that don't even say Lotto on them. Most of us are wearing them because it was raining, because that typhoon was coming. And so people were asking for autographs. We're signing. And I didn't realize, but people were stuffing candy in my pockets for signing. Like, I came back.
Like, as a thank you? Like, thanks for the autograph. Here's some candy.
Exactly. I had Kit Kats. I had Haribo. Like, I should send you the picture after. Like, people just, like, threw shit in my pockets. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm not Sagan. Like, we all know that. Like, it's not like I graced anyone with my presence, but it was just an amazing. They love cycling so much over there. And it only grew from there. I mean, we did a couple days of training, and every time you would come back, they were outside 50 people on either side of the hotel just waiting.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And they would notice you without saying anything or doing anything. But then I would say it can't.
You cyclists are easy to spot walking around the hotel. I hate to break it to you. You guys stick out like a sore thumb.
Okay, that's true. And also, I think Americans stick out in Japan.
Well, that's true.
But
that too.
yeah, so but I think the thing where I realized that wow, these people might be the best fans in the entire world is where we went out for a ride that the morning before the criterium. They have a criterium before that road race, the Japan Cup road race.
Yep.
And so we all ride out because there's a Gran Fondo on the road race loop. So we all have to get up super early. I think we have to leave the hotel around 7 a.m. So we're leaving. We ride down like through the crit circuit and away. And as we're riding, it's pissing rain, like typhoon weather, Brad.
Yeah,
like
right.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Like I'm wearing everything I have. And I'm like, what is going on? Because there's people like already lined up 2 back.
Wow.
And I'm not exaggerating. And I'm like, what the hell? Like just setting a chair here or like sitting and like have lunch. They're tailgating, but along the side of a road where nothing is happening for the next 12 hours.
In the middle of a typhoon.
In the middle of a typhoon. And I'm like, what the frick? And someone's like, oh yeah, they're waiting for the criterium. I was like, what? It's not till 7 o'clock tonight. Yeah. They line up to get a good seat. I'm like, what? And so I'm like, that's bullshit. We kept riding, they stopped because we passed out of the criterium course and we went and we did our ride and there was another 400 people doing the criterium ride with us. And so that was a blast. We finished, we rode home, and sure enough, there's like double the people there were earlier. And I'm like, holy crap. No. And so like we start pulling up and I'm like, okay, so if they are here for the race, they're going to stop me and sign for autographs. So I'm like riding beside and I like almost get pulled into the crowd. And I'm like, okay, so cool. So anyway, they are here. And I'm like, no way, they're standing here. And so I started taking pictures with people and doing that stuff. And
instant celebrity.
Yeah, but like as I said, if I was bigger in cycling, I might understand it more. But it's just they love cycling. They love the sport of it. And that was so cool. And so they're yelling and they stood there until the criterium. And we came out all freezing our asses off, all like, oh, I don't want to race. It's disgusting. And then you start looking around and you're like, oh, okay, we're going to race.
Yeah, that's
no matter what, we're going to race. But they sat there for 12 hours for a 30-kilometer criterium, 50 minutes.
Amazing.
And it was amazing. And then I was like, they are the best fans in the world. And I said this on Dave's show. I was like, California fans are amazing.
You had some bold words on the Dave Toll show.
Oh, California fans are amazing, and it's hard to like take away from like I guess home race in America, but Japan Cup stepped up and it deserves to be World Tour some year.
The challenge has been issued, California. I'm sure we'll have a lot of listeners that'll be there, but I'm with you. There's nothing like, for me, it's the Chinese race. I spent a lot of time doing the UCI races in China, but I think Japan is the same way. Just the sheer size and dedication of the crowds is unmatched. It's amazing, unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think it's a demand thing. If there's not so many races, then people always want to come to whatever is there.
They're starving for sure. Same, we did the Tour of Guangxi in China, and it's the one and only chance for Chinese fans to see World Tour riders at home. And it's huge just to see those riders up close and personal. I think it's big for a lot of people. What was your first pro race? Did you ever watch a pro race? I mean, besides on TV, did you ever have one?
I watched the tour a lot. The first
person?
Race I probably watched in person.
You were probably racing. I mean, you were probably...
Yeah, no, the first time I saw big riders was at... they used to have the National Criterium Championships in Grand Rapids.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I almost got killed at Crit Nationals in Grand Rapids. There was a windstorm one year that kicked up, and I was announcing, and I was walking down the street in one of those flags that they have, like, I don't know, they're like 7 foot tall on a pole.
Oh, yeah.
Came loose and almost like impaled me. It was flying straight down the road. They delayed the Crit Nationals for like a few hours. I still remember that. It was one of the closest I've ever come to death. So Grand Rapids has a special place in my heart.
No, for a bad reason. But no, it was really cool. So I wouldn't say there's pro tour riders there, but Tom Zerbel was there, who I always looked up to, and a lot of big. I think Phil Gaiman might have been there. Yeah,
that was a decent crit too for years. There was the Priority Health Classic was up there.
Yep. And then it has cobbles. It was technical. It was awesome. It was great. It was a great course.
Yeah.
But I would say that was my first. And then I also went to those Fitchburg Green Mountain Stage Race, and those races were awesome. You'd see some of the bigger pros come there and try their luck. Yeah, and I kind of left that out, but that's kind of where I first started like going up against guys who were racing. the big. I raced Nate Brown and Lawson Craddock, Gavin Mannion as a junior at Green Mountain Stage Race.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Talk about
Yeah.
it. You came up in a strong class for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Well, from Green Mountain Stage Race to World Tour, Alexey Vermeulen, thanks for joining us, man. I love your attitude. Keep your head up. We know you're going to land somewhere good for the next year here. Stay motivated. Stay strong. We believe in you, brother.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for thinking of me.
And enjoy Austria. Hope, enjoy the riding and maybe a little time.
Get some skiing in.
Yeah, I guess it is winter time there. You can still, can you ride now in Austria? I mean, what's the weather like where you are?
Moment,
are you in the mountains? Are you?
No, we're down low, but at this exact moment, going on a road bike would be interesting.
Not enjoyable.
So we'll see. Marco Holler's here also. I think we're going to get out for a long run in a little bit here.
All right.
And I think tomorrow it'll burn off with the sun.
All right. Right on. Enjoy the ride. Thanks for taking the time, and good luck. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Brad.
This has been another episode of Lazer Radio. Be sure to check out more great shows on the Wide Angle Podium Network. Until next time, I'm Brad Sohner, saying thanks for listening.